Hi, owls. It's Miss Benham. Let's read a fun story about some ducks. And ducks live on the pond. And the duck says quack, 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 quack. This story is Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCluskey. Robert McCluskey is the author. That means he wrote the words to the story. This is a wonderful story. It's one of my absolute favorites. Are we ready? Make way for ducklings. All right. Let's open it up. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live. But every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. I wonder where they're going to land. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a little island on it. The very place to spend the night, quack, quack, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. See, and there really is a public garden in Boston, and it's a great place to visit. Next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond. But they didn't find much. See, look at that. They're going under the water to look for food. They're ducking into the water. Ooh, page is stuck. There we go. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. "Good morning," quack, quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The big bird was too proud to answer, but the people on the boat threw peanuts in the water, so the Mallards followed them all round the pond and got another breakfast, better than the first. And you can really see these swan boats floating through the water at the public garden. "I like this place," quack, quacked Mrs. Mallard, as they climbed out on the bank and waddled along. "Why don't we build a nest and raise our ducklings right in the pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and the people feed us peanuts. What could be better?" "Oh, good," said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that suited her. But uh-oh, I wonder what's going to happen. "Look out!" squawked Mrs. Mallard all of a dither. "You'll get run over." And when she got her breath, she added, "This is no place for babies. Look at that, a little boy on a bicycle almost ran them over. With all these horrid things rushing about, we'll have to look somewhere else." Uh-oh. So they flew over Beacon Hill and round the State House. But there was no place there. Look at that, all those buildings. That's no place for a duck. They belong at the pond. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in. They flew over the Charles River. "This is better," quack, quacked Mr. Mallard. "That island looks like a nice quiet place, and it's only a little away from the public garden." "Yes," said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts. "That looks like just the right place to hatch our ducklings." Okay, let's find out what happens. So they chose a cozy spot among the bushes near the water. See, look, there's their nest. And settled down to build the nest. And only just in time, for now they were beginning to molt, and all the old wing feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until new ones grew in. Oh, phew, they were right on time, weren't they, owls? But of course, they could swim, And one day they swam over to the park on the riverbank, and there they met a policeman called Michael. Now Michael fed them peanuts, and after that the mallards called on Michael every day. That means they visited Michael every day. Michael was being a nice friend. After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she couldn't go to visit Michael anymore because she had to sit on the eggs to keep them warm. She moved off to the nest only to get a drink of water, or to have her lunch, or to count the eggs and make sure they were all there. Wow, 8 eggs in a nest! Can you believe that? One day the ducklings hatched out. First came Jack, then Cack, and then Lack, then Mack and Knack and Whack and Pack and Quack. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were bursting with pride. It was a great responsibility taking care of so many ducklings, and it kept them very busy. Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Mallard are good mommies and daddies. One day, Mr. Mallard decided he'd like to take a trip to see what the rest of the river was like further on. So off he set. I'll meet you in a week in the public garden. He quacked over his shoulder. Take good care of the ducklings. Don't you worry, said Mrs. Mallard. I know all about bringing up children. And she did. So there goes Mr. Mallard, and there's Mrs. Mallard, and all the little baby ducklings. And remember, a duck says quack, 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 quack. She taught them how to swim and dive. Those baby ducklings look so soft and cute, don't they? She taught them to walk in a line, to come when they were called, and to keep a safe distance from bikers and scooters and other things with wheels. Oh, Miss Benham taught you how to walk in a line, right? Mm-hmm. When at last she felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, "Come along, children, follow me. Before you can wink an eyelash, Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Whack, Pack, and Quack fell into line just as they had been taught. Mrs. Mallard led the way into the water, and they swam behind her to the opposite bank. See, there they go. All the little ducklings. They're good listeners, aren't they, owls? Mm-hmm. There, they waded ashore and waddled along till they came to the highway. What's on the highway, owls? That's right, there are cars. I wonder what is going to happen. All those cars there. Mrs. Mallard stepped out to cross the road. Honk, honk, went the horns on the speeding cars. Quack, went Mrs. Mallard as she tumbled back. Quack, 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 went Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Whack, Pack, and Quack, just as loud as the little quackers could quack. The cars kept speeding by and honking, and Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings kept right on quack, quack, quacking. Oh no, what's going to happen? They made so much noise that Michael, remember their friend Michael, came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. Do you think Michael is going to help the ducks? I think so. He planted himself in the center of the road, raised one hand to stop traffic, and then beckoned with the other, the way policemen do, for Mrs. Mallard to cross the street. Oh, look at that. He's stopping the car so that all of the ducks can cross the street safely. As soon as Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings were safe on the other side and on their way down Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to his police booth. I wonder what he is going to do. He called Clancy at headquarters and said, "There's a family of ducks walking down the street." Clancy said, "Family of what?" "Ducks!" yelled Michael. "Send a police car, quick!" Oh, Michael is really being a good friend, helping. Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallard had reached the corner bookshop and turned into Charles Street with Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Whack, Pack, and Quack all marching in a line behind her. Look, there they are on the street, and all the people are looking at all the little ducks walking along. Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Hill said, "Isn't it amazing?" And the man who swept the street said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" And when Mrs. Mallard heard them, she was so proud she tipped her nose in the air and walked with an extra swing in her waddle. Look at that. Mrs. Mallard is so proud of her little ducks. When they came to the corner of Beacon Street, there was a police car with 4 policemen that Clancy had sent from headquarters. The policemen held back the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings could march across the street. They're being such good helpers for all of those ducks. Right into a public garden. Inside the gate, they all turned round to say thank you to the policeman. The policeman smiled and waved goodbye. Oh, that was so polite of them to say thank you for all of the friends who helped them cross the street. When they reached the pond and swam across the little island, there was Mr. Mallard waiting for them just as he had promised. The ducklings liked the new island so much that they decided to live there. All day long, they follow the swan boats and eat peanuts. Oh, that sounds like so much fun! And when night falls, they swim to their little island and they go to sleep. Oh, the end. So that's the story of the ducklings, and the ducklings live in the pond. All right, owls, I hope you enjoyed the story, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.